morning of January 11, 2026, a tranquil dawn across the Marmara region betrayed the brewing tempest. What began as a mere south wind in the pre-dawn hours escalated with terrifying rapidity, transforming by noon into a monstrous storm system, its eye fixed menacingly upon Istanbul. The city, a vital artery connecting continents, was about to face a test of its very foundations. With wind speeds in some locales soaring to hurricane force, the storm clamped down on Istanbul, effectively paralyzing every facet of urban existence. The meticulous choreography of the city's vast land, sea, and air transportation networks unraveled in moments, giving way to profound risks and widespread disruption. From critical infrastructure to the arteries of commerce, the impact was immediate and devastating. The powerful Lodos wind, a notorious southwesterly often gracing these shores, began its destructive overture with the first light of dawn. The forewarnings, issued days in advance by the Meteorological Service and ACOM, those unsung guardians of the skies, had unfortunately become a grim reality. As the morning progressed, the storm's intensity surged, reaching its crescendo around noon. Average wind speeds within the sprawling metropolis hovered between 70 to 90 kilometers per hour, but along the vulnerable coastal areas, the gusts were far more brutal, tearing at the cityscape with unrestrained fury. Soon, the floodgates of emergency reports opened. From every district of Istanbul, a relentless stream of distress calls poured in. Ancient trees, the silent sentinels of the city's parks, violently uprooted. The roofs of buildings, once solid protectors, ripped away like paper kites, and shards of detached building parts transformed into deadly projectiles, sending the entire city into a state of heightened alarm and fear. The destructive might of the southwesterly wind found its most immediate and visceral expression upon the maritime domain. Services vital to daily life, such as the sea buses connecting Istanbul to Bursa and the myriad city ferry routes, were brought to an abrupt and complete halt, suspended without hesitation for the overriding imperative of public safety. Yet, the true, untamed power of the storm unveiled itself with horrifying clarity off the coast of Tuzla and along its vulnerable shoreline. Reports, laced with desperation, described how numerous Morday boats, unable to withstand the colossal churning waves, surrendered their anchors and their very stability, losing control one by one before being mercilessly swept away by the tempestuous sea. The harrowing images broadcast from the Tuzla coast at noon became an iconic, stark summary of the unfolding catastrophe. Some vessels, victims of the overwhelming force, capsized entirely, vanishing beneath the waves, while others were hurled with bone-shattering violence against the unforgiving shore, disintegrating into splinters. Boats, their hulls breached, swiftly filled with water and rolled over, succumbing to the watery abyss. The desperate, valiant struggle of fishermen and boat owners, their livelihoods dangling precariously in the balance as they fought against the giant, merciless waves to rescue their vessels, was captured in agonizing, second-by-second detail on the cell phone cameras of nearby citizens, a testament to their unwavering spirit against impossible odds. Along Istanbul's Obuz Lular coast, the ocean itself seemed to rise in revolt. Giant waves, estimated at approximately 5 meters in height, surged with unstoppable momentum over massive coastal rocks, obliterating any natural barrier and reaching all the way to the humble fisherman's shelter. Within mere seconds, the shelter was swallowed by the encroaching sea, forcing the fishermen into a relentless, desperate battle against time and nature to salvage their boats and dinghies from the ravenous waves. This latest, heartbreaking scene underscored yet again the persistent and escalating danger in a region where, just days prior, 8 other boats had been lost to a similar, though less intense, storm. A chillingly similar tableau unfolded in Fenerbahce, a stark reminder of the widespread devastation. Here, the sea waters, propelled by the relentless south wind, overflowed the coastal strip, inundating coastal roads and creating treacherous, life-threatening conditions along the entire coastline. The storm's far-reaching effects were not confined to the land and sea. They ascended to the very skies, where their intensity proved equally, if not more, profound. Air traffic over Istanbul came to a complete, shuddering standstill, held hostage by the sheer force of the winds. Pilots, in the final, delicate stages of descent into Sabiha Gökçen Airport, found themselves locked in a terrifying battle against powerful, unpredictable gusts on the runway, forcing them to abort their landings and execute dangerous go-around maneuvers. Several aircraft, circling ominously in the turbulent air for precious minutes, their fuel reserves dwindling, were compelled to divert to other, more distant airports, their passengers held captive by the weather's whims. Authorities, their faces etched with concern, announced that the wind would show no signs of abating later in the day, issuing a stern call to all passengers to brace themselves for the very real possibility of extensive delays and outright cancellations in their flight schedules. The economic ramifications of this aerial paralysis were immediate, impacting not just travel plans, but the intricate global supply chains reliant on Istanbul's strategic air cargo hub. According to official data meticulously compiled and shared by the Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality, emergency response teams were dispatched to an alarming total of 69 distinct incidents across the sprawling city. The storm's toll, cold and numerical, nevertheless painted a stark picture of its destructive power. 26 trees, some ancient, some newly planted, were violently uprooted across the city, their timber legacies ending abruptly. The roofs of 16 buildings, meant to shelter and protect, were violently ripped away, leaving gaping wounds against the gray sky. Furthermore, 23 dangerous building parts, 4 utility poles, and countless signs and billboards, unable to withstand the wind's relentless assault, were torn from their moorings, becoming dangerous debris. Yet, the true extent of the damage transcended mere statistics. In Obuz, the roof of a 4-story building, an emblem of urban resilience, was peeled away like tissue paper, then hurled downwards to crush 2 parked cars below, a visceral illustration of the storm's raw power. A chillingly similar incident marred the E5 side road, where pieces torn from the roof of a commercial establishment inflicted extensive material damage, leaving behind a trail of ruin and shattered livelihoods. Amidst the storm's unrelenting intensity, a volley of critical warnings reverberated through the city, issued in rapid succession by the General Directorate of Meteorology and the Istanbul Governor's Office. A vital, urgent appeal was broadcast to citizens residing on the densely populated European side, imploring them, in the strongest terms, to remain indoors unless their journeys were absolutely essential. This was not merely a convenience request, but a desperate plea for public safety in the face of falling debris and unstable structures. However, the most salient detail, the one offering a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos, was the eagerly anticipated shift in weather conditions expected by evening. With the wind projected to dramatically change direction to the northwest, a sudden and precipitous drop of 8 to 10 degrees Celsius in air temperatures was forecast. According to the latest predictive models, this challenging and relentless weather system, which had held the city captive throughout Thursday, was expected to gradually lose its intensity from the evening hours onward, finally surrendering its grip and completely vacating the city by Friday morning, January 9th. For millions, the prospect of a new day free from the storm's fury offered a collective, much-needed sigh of relief. The events unfolding in the southern reaches of the Marmara region mirrored, with chilling precision, the chaos gripping Istanbul. From the early morning hours, the relentless south wind in Bursa rapidly escalated to storm force, replicating the destruction seen in the metropolis. Mature trees, symbols of resilience, were torn from their roots across the city, and the roofs of numerous buildings designed for durability were violently stripped away. However, the most striking and alarming news emanated from a university campus, a supposed sanctuary of learning. Here, immense sections of the roof of a female student dormitory detached with terrifying force, crashing down onto the rooms below. Miraculously, despite the collapse of walls in some rooms, it was announced that there were no casualties or injuries in this incident, a testament to either incredible fortune or swift evacuation. The storm, further intensified by heavy rainfall, was anticipated to persist throughout the day in Bursa, with the wind gradually losing its devastating speed from the evening hours onward. Yet, a new threat loomed on the horizon. The real drama was slated for the weekend. According to the latest data from meteorological sources, the south wind, like a vengeful spirit, was predicted to make an unwelcome return on Saturday afternoon, and by Sunday, the persistent rain would morph into a treacherous mixture of rain and snow, ushering in a cold front that would add another layer of challenge to the region's recovery efforts. The storm's relentless assault completely paralyzed daily life in the neighboring city of Yalova. From noon onward, winds reaching a staggering 80 kilometers per hour unleashed widespread devastation. Most dramatically, a massive crane, a symbol of industrial progress, buckled and collapsed at a shipyard, its metal skeleton twisting into a mangled wreck, a direct hit to the local economy and infrastructure. Throughout the city center, roofs were ripped off, trees were uprooted, and vehicles caught beneath the tumbling debris suffered extensive, often irreparable damage. Sea transportation, the lifeblood of many coastal communities, also bore the harsh brunt of the south wind. A ferry operating the crucial Yalova-Eskişehir route, its journey essential for trade and commuters, was forced to turn back, utterly unable to dock due to the storm's ferocity. In light of the escalating risks and widespread hazards, the Yalova governor's office took a radical and unprecedented decision, completely banning motorcycles and couriers from traffic between 12 and 2200 hours. This measure, while critical for safety, highlighted the severe disruption to local commerce and the gig economy, dependent on such rapid delivery services. The destructive tendrils of the south wind extended far beyond the immediate Marmara Sea, reaching down to the Edremit district of Balıkesir. Along this picturesque coastline, strong winds exceeding 60 kilometers per hour rapidly whipped up giant waves, cresting at approximately 2 meters in height in a remarkably short time. As the churning seawater overflowed the coastline, breaching natural and man-made barriers, it surged inland, reaching coastal neighborhoods and threatening numerous businesses situated at sea level with the ominous prospect of flooding. In Edremit Bay, where the popular coastal walking paths and the vital coastal strip were partially submerged by the relentless waves, the increasingly powerful winds continued to pose a severe and ongoing threat to coastal safety and the region's tourism-dependent economy. In a comprehensive assessment reflecting the broader scope of this terrifying weather activity, the General Directorate of Meteorology issued a yellow code warning for an astounding total of 63 provinces across Turkey. These assessments underscored the urgent need for preparedness against storms, powerful winds, and particularly the omnipresent southerly winds, as well as the looming risk of frost in specific inland areas. The current devastating weather system, which had held the Marmara and Aegean regions in its vice-like grip, was anticipated to finally dissipate by Friday, making way for an even harsher, more unforgiving cold front poised to sweep across the country over the weekend. Forecasts predicted a rapid and precipitous drop in temperatures, particularly in Istanbul, as the southerly winds subsided. This change in atmospheric conditions would inevitably alter the character of precipitation, transitioning the region fully into the stark, biting grip of winter. Experts, their voices tinged with concern, emphasize a crucial point. These intense southerly winds and associated storms, while always powerful, are not entirely unprecedented for the Marmara region. Indeed, the Lodos, as it is known, is a familiar, albeit often unwelcome, seasonal visitor. However, this time the narrative is markedly different and far more concerning. The real issue, the experts highlight, is the alarming speed at which the wind intensity peaks, reaching such destructive force within an unusually compressed time frame. This sudden, violent burst of energy is placing unprecedented and critical pressure on the city's aging infrastructure and its complex transportation networks, exposing vulnerabilities that require urgent attention. Authorities remain on high alert, their warnings echoing across the airwaves, reminding everyone that risks such as roofs being violently torn off, trees collapsing without warning, and ongoing disruptions to vital sea and air traffic have not yet completely passed. Therefore, strict adherence to official announcements and directives is now more critical than ever, not just for individual safety, but for the collective resilience of the region. The entire Marmara region, with Istanbul at its epicenter, is facing a truly difficult and defining test, confronted by the destructive, multifaceted effects of this unprecedented storm and the ferocious south wind. In this challenging process, where the safety of life and property reigns paramount, we extend our deepest sympathies and best wishes to all citizens affected by the relentless south wind and the unforgiving storm. Our objective, as always, is to assess these unfolding events in their complete and stark reality, from an unbiased and analytical perspective, providing a comprehensive understanding of the situation. As the storm's final echoes fade from the Marmara skies, what remains is more than scattered debris and damaged infrastructure. This event stands as a stark warning about the growing volatility of extreme weather and the fragile balance sustaining modern urban life. Istanbul and its neighboring cities did not merely endure a violent Lodos. They confronted the limits of preparedness, resilience, and rapid response in the face of nature's accelerating force. The speed at which calm transformed into chaos exposed vulnerabilities that can no longer be treated as seasonal inconveniences or statistical anomalies. Beyond the immediate destruction, this storm forces a deeper reckoning. How resilient are our cities when warning times shrink? How prepared are critical transport, maritime, and aviation systems for sudden, cascading failures? And most importantly, how quickly can lessons be translated into action before the next storm arrives, stronger, faster, and less forgiving? The Marmara region will recover, as it always has. But recovery alone is not enough. Adaptation, foresight, and accountability must now take center stage. What do you think this storm reveals about urban readiness and climate risk? Are cities like Istanbul prepared for what comes next, or merely reacting to what has already passed? Share your perspective, join the discussion, and stay connected for continued in-depth coverage of the forces reshaping our world.